Okay, so my discussion this week is about issues of equity when it comes to access to instruction that uses technology in progressive ways. And it all started because of this article that I found, Multicultural Education and the Digital Divide, focused on social economic class, background by Christine Clark and Paul Gorski. So this study talked about a whole bunch of different things in terms of access. So gaps in access. So gaps in access to devices, internet in school and at home, and just the overall infrastructure needed to have technology and to utilize technology on campus. But one thing that it talked about that really stuck out to me is the fact that even if the infrastructure is there on campus, there is another issue when it comes to having access to teachers who are actually using the technology in new and progressive ways. And it found that teachers who were in high poverty areas that are disproportionately filled with students of color are less likely to use the technology in ways that are new and progressive. And what they mean by new and progressive are the ways that enable students to use and develop new literacies, ways in which students are content creators. Students are engaging in the activities and learning the skills in terms of research that will enable them to succeed and be successful with the careers that we don't even know exist yet in this age of information. So that really stuck out to me, and that is what the topic of my post is this week. Potential impact. So in one of our viewings, in one of the assignments that we have for viewing, Edmund Gordon talks about the achievement gap. And he talks about what he thinks causes it. And he goes into it's a lack of resources and it's a lack of opportunities. But even before we get there, I think we definitely have to acknowledge the role that ism. So this is classism, racism, sexism, ableism, all of these isms which legitimize each other, the way in which they rear their head in the institution of education, and just the way that they rear their head in society and life in general. And if we don't start to talk about what's caught, even if you have the infrastructure, you still have teachers who are not using this technology in new and progressive ways with a certain subset of students. You have to stop and ask yourself why. You have to get to the bottom of why and not just keep brushing it under the rug. And if we don't do that, the chances of closing what he called the achievement gap, I call the opportunity gap, because, the achievement comes after the inequitable access to the opportunities. So if we don't actually stop and ask what's causing this, if we don't actually get to the root cause of this, we're going to continue to have this gap in opportunity, which leads to this gap in achievement. And that'll continue to be disastrous for students of low socioeconomic status. My personal thoughts. Of course, it's disconcerting to me because I was a student who grew up low social economic status. I'm Black. I'm a woman. All of these different layers and intersections of my identity. I could have been in a situation like that. And, I went to college, and college was really hard for me. College was really hard for me because there were a lot of opportunities that I didn't have, and I had to play catch up. Thank goodness I was able to catch up. But I entered the teaching profession with an organization called Teach for America. And I know that everybody doesn't always like Teach for America. Even as an alumni, there are things about Teach for America that I don't like. But one thing that I really love, that I really appreciate, is that along with pedagogy in terms of teaching and instruction, we also were forced to do and I say forced because we would have never elected to do this, because even now that I'm a teacher and I'm not in Teach for America and I'm an alumni, I've never been to a campus where they made teachers do identity work. They never made teachers ask, how does your identity and previous experiences impact the relationship that you have with our students, or the things that you do in class, or how you treat our students? And they've never asked you to think about how your identity impacts your teaching. And that's a huge problem. We have all different types of professional development, but at the root of it, at this achievement gap is I don't even want to say very well, is, teachers and identity work and our biases and understanding how they help and how they hinder us in the classroom. And it's not just in terms of class, it's also in terms of race, it's also in terms of gender. I mean, look at the fact that, you have all of these girls who are capable and definitely want to do STEM, but you don't have them being included. You don't have them being included. You don't have STEM careers and classes being marketed to girls and it's not something that's done, it's not something that I believe is done maliciously. It's a subconscious thing that I think we have as a society about the abilities and interests of girls and boys. And all of those things need to be addressed if we want to close this achievement gap. And the fact that, the fact that students of lower social economic status are having that there's a gap in access to teachers who actually use this technology in new and progressive ways is just a symptom of a larger problem. And definitely my position is that of course I'm going to say that we need training. Of course I'm going to say that we need training on this issue, because that is definitely what we need training on this issue. But we also need to, I think, as educators, as much as we add all the different tech sites and all the different pedagogy sites to our personal learning network, we need to have, as teachers in this profession, because we care about kids, because we have integrity in the job that we do, we also need to actively be developing ourselves in terms of doing the identity work. So possible strategy, solutions, and implications. So, as I discussed before, definitely doing training and definitely making this a mandatory part of professional development. And as individuals in the teaching profession, engaging in identity work. And I know that it can be a touchy subject, but we need to do it. And we need to create communities where these conversations need to happen, because the video that I actually posted next down to the thought-provoking questions, it is showing a white male teacher who's teaching all different kinds of students of color, students of immigrant students, second language learners, and it is talking about how he is letting students lead the conversation in terms of anti-racism, because the Pew Research Center article that was a part of reading, students are the generations, our students are more diverse ethnically and culturally than we are. Let them lead the discussion. The issue isn't them, I feel it's us, because we've grown up in, environments that may have been segregated in terms of race and class and gender and different things like that. And students are ready for this because this is their life and this is what they lead. And I just really appreciate in this video that I'm going to show you of, I think, Tom Radmacher, how he's letting students lead this discussion and actually be stewards for him in terms of doing his anti-racist work. And implications for making this a mandatory part of professional development and creating a culture where educators actually engage in identity work on their own and as parts of a personal learning community. The implications for this is we have more inclusive and empowering students who can use technology to get out their opinions, to learn how to be full digital citizens. And that's so important because the world that we live in is absolutely changing. And thought-provoking questions. So this is a really cool video about Tom Rademacher, and he teaches in Minneapolis. As I said, he teaches all different kinds of students, very diverse populations of students, and it's just talking about the ways in which he is he's not letting students. The way in which he's teaching and using technology in progressive ways is creating the stage for students to take the lead in terms of having an anti-racist classroom. And of course, he's talking about anti-racism, but the isms legitimize each other. So definitely conversations about class, sexuality, immigration status, definitely ableism, different things like that. So 3 thought-provoking questions. In what ways do you think your identity, beliefs, and experiences impact your teaching? Do you think an anti-racist /classist/racist education should be part of professional development? Why or why not? And why do you think, and in what way do you think what do you think the way in which you utilize technology in your classroom, what do you think this communicates to your students in terms of your beliefs about their abilities, their lives, the importance of their lives and their futures? Thank you.